Have you ever wondered what could lead an entire population to turn on their neighbors in a brutal, systematic slaughter? What could possibly ignite such hatred? The roots of this darkness can be traced back to the colonial period in Rwanda, where a complex web of ethnic divisions was woven. The Hutus and Tutsis, two distinct ethnic groups, were forced into a rigid hierarchy by the Belgian colonists. This hierarchy intensified after the revolution of 1959, when Hutu-led governments took the reins of power, further marginalizing the Tutsis. The seeds of animosity were sown, watered by years of resentment, discrimination, and fear. A society divided, with the tension brewing just beneath the surface, waiting for the right spark to set it ablaze. As the years rolled on, the chasm between the Hutus and Tutsis grew wider, the animosity deeper. The stage was set for a tragedy of unimaginable proportions. As the tension simmered, a single event was all it took to ignite the flame of genocide. The spark that ignited the genocide was the assassination of Rwandan President Juvenal Habyarimana and Burundi President Cyprien Ntaryamira. But who shot the plane? A question that still hovers over the annals of history, shrouded in controversy and theories. Some point fingers at the Hutu extremists who allegedly sought to halt the implementation of the Arusha Accords, a peace agreement that threatened their political monopoly. Others, however, suggest that the Rwanda Patriotic Front, led by Paul Kagame, was responsible, aiming to seize control of the country. The truth remains elusive, but what's undeniable is the immediate aftermath of the crash. The plane wreckage was still smoldering when the reprisals began. The Presidential Guard, along with Hutu militia groups and civilians, initiated a campaign of violence against the Tutsi population and moderate Hutus. The radio waves, once filled with music and news, now echoed with calls for extermination. Lists of government opponents were distributed to death squads. Roadblocks sprouted like poisonous mushrooms across the country, trapping those attempting to flee. A macabre dance of death had begun, orchestrated by the Interahamwe and the Impuzamugambi, the militant wings of the ruling parties. The world watched in horror as the land of 1,000 hills turned into a slaughterhouse overnight. The international community, paralyzed by indecision and hamstrung by bureaucracy, failed to intervene. The United Nations peacekeeping troops on the ground, outnumbered and outgunned, could do little more than bear witness to the unfolding tragedy. With the stage set, the genocide commenced with an unimaginable brutality. What followed was a 100-day period of intense, organized killing. But how did the world react? In an eruption of violence that would stun the world, one of the darkest chapters in human history was written. The Rwanda Genocide, a meticulously planned and executed massacre, would claim the lives of nearly 1 million Tutsis and moderate Hutus in less than 4 months. At the heart of this terrifying storm were the Hutu extremists who, fueled by decades of ethnic tension, unleashed a wave of violence that swept across the tiny nation. The Interahamwe, a militia group formed by the extremists, played a pivotal role in executing this merciless campaign of death. Their mission was chillingly simple: to wipe out the Tutsi minority. As blood flowed in the streets of Rwanda, the international community found itself paralyzed by inaction. Despite the horrific reports flooding out of the country, the world largely turned a blind eye. The United Nations, hamstrung by bureaucracy and a reluctance to intervene, failed to halt the genocide. This lack of action would later be deemed a colossal failure of the international system to protect the innocent. But as the world hesitated, one group was preparing to intervene. The Rwanda Patriotic Front, a rebel group predominantly composed of Tutsi refugees, decided to take action. Led by Paul Kagame, they were determined to end the bloodshed. The RPF, initially based in Uganda, launched an offensive against the Hutu-led government. Despite being heavily outnumbered, they were a formidable force, motivated by desperation and the desire to save their people. As the RPF advanced, they began to turn the tide of the genocide. Their victories on the battlefield forced the genocidal government to flee, leading to an end of the massacres. The RPF's intervention was far from perfect, with accusations of reprisal attacks against Hutus. Yet their actions undeniably played a crucial role in halting the genocide. While the world watched, the RPF took matters into their own hands. In the wake of the genocide, Rwanda was left devastated. But what happened to the perpetrators? Many of the Hutu extremists responsible for the atrocities fled to the neighboring Democratic Republic of Congo. Here they regrouped and formed the Democratic Forces for the Liberation of Rwanda, also known as Interahamwe. This marked the beginning of a new conflict, one that would engulf the Congo and further destabilize the region. Meanwhile, back in Rwanda, the situation was far from settled. Paul Kagame, the leader of the Rwanda Patriotic Front, had a monumental task ahead of him. He was now responsible for a nation in ruins, a people traumatized, and a volatile political landscape. Kagame's role in post-genocide Rwanda has been both praised and criticized. On one hand, he has been credited with restoring stability and fostering economic growth. On the other hand, his administration has been accused of suppressing dissent and manipulating the narrative of the genocide to consolidate power. The aftermath of the genocide also saw Rwanda's involvement in the Congo conflict. Accusations have surfaced of Rwanda exploiting Congo's mineral wealth to fund its own development. These allegations, if true, raise serious questions about the ethics of international trade and the world's response to such practices. In the wake of devastation, a new Rwanda emerged from the ashes, but the journey has been far from straightforward, and the scars of the past continue to shape the nation's future. Today, Rwanda is hailed as an African success story, but what about the lingering tensions and the accusations of oppression? Under President Paul Kagame's leadership, Rwanda has seen remarkable economic growth and development. However, this progress has not come without controversy. Critics argue that Kagame's government suppresses dissent, muzzles the press, and stifles political opposition. There are allegations of oppression against the remaining Hutus, causing a silent tension beneath the surface. In the neighboring Democratic Republic of Congo, the conflict continues to roil, with accusations of Rwanda's involvement in resource exploitation. Yet within Rwanda's borders, efforts are in place to prevent a recurrence of such a horrific tragedy. Unity and reconciliation programs have been implemented, and the government has made significant strides in promoting a single Rwandan identity over ethnic divisions. As we reflect on the Rwandan genocide, we are reminded of the horrors of unchecked hatred and the resilience of a nation to rebuild and move forward. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, please subscribe, like, and comment below, and also add what you think is omitted.